Have you ever experienced something so crippling in your life that has made you feel broken? I have. Are you someone who has a giving heart but is struggling to feel good themselves? Are you consistently putting your needs aside to take care of everyone else? If so, you're not alone. Giving starts with giving to yourself so that you are able to give of yourself to other people. Isn't it time you took back control and discovered what makes you tick? Join me in my journey and find out how you can feel better about yourself, live your best life, and share that with others. Thinking of yourself, it doesn't make you selfish, it makes you brave. I'm Nelia, and this is the Giving Starts With You podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Giving Starts With You podcast. I'm your host, Nelia Hutt. I am so happy to have my friend. I'm going to call her my friend because that's what she is. She's my friend, Natalie-Jo Flynn, to the show. How are you today, Natalie?
I'm good. Yeah, we've had a good morning so far and a mild winter, getting some snow today, but that's okay. It's due.
Yes, you're out in Cleveland.
Yes.
Awesome. So Natalie, she is someone who has become important in my life, and we've connected through this podcast. She's a past guest. She, if you guys want to hear, a bit of her backstory, her episodes are 52 and 53, and we connected immediately. And when I heard about this topic and what she was doing, I jumped through the screen and said, "Oh my God, you have to come back on here and talk to us and talk to the listeners, because I think it's going to really, really help not only you, but me. I'm here to learn too." So I want to just jump right in, and I want to tell you a little bit about Natalie-Jo. So Natalie-Jo Flynn, she is a Cleveland, Ohio native. She has been a nurse for 26 years and a nurse practitioner for 15 years. She's dabbled in fashion, theater, and lived in LA and Colorado, where her horse Claire is from. She loves all creatures, big to bugs. Natalie took the extra step in education to become a certified functional medicine practitioner after experiencing a personal health and life crash, and now has her own Move That Mountain functional health practice. I love that name. If I haven't told you before, I think it's amazing. Natalie has a passion for educating people on taking control of their own health and well-being. Today, we're going to do our best to stay on track here. And that's in Natalie's words, because I know we're going to stay on track. I'm not worried. And we're going to talk about how aging doesn't have to mean getting old. And I love this topic so much. It's something I hadn't really thought about before. But when I heard Natalie talk about it, I'm like, oh my God, this is too good not to share with all these people that I love and listen to the show. As you guys know, the Giving Starts With You podcast is all about how to give to yourself so that you can better give to the people that you love. And if you don't have your health, you're not going to be there to take care of other people. So Natalie, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for taking the time today to come on here again. Natalie.
Well, thank you, Nelia, because this is my third time here with you, and we have become friends over the, what is it, year or more now? A year and a half, almost?
I think. Yeah.
I think it was. I don't know what episode you're on now. And since I've been knowing about you and listening to your podcast, it has really brought to mind, how about giving does start with you, and your mission is that no one feels alone, lonely. And I found in my profession that that's so prevalent, and even people that are in a room full of people can still feel alone or scared or not know where to turn when they have issues. So I've taken on my life to share what I've been through and being more transparent over the years since meeting you and sharing my story originally on here. I felt that it was so important to really just we are the leaders. Anytime we've gone through something, we're the leaders for the next person. And I feel like that's what I'm here to do now that I've figured that out, is just to help the next person and help their life in any way I can. So that's what I do now. I mean, I pile it in with my career and my education, but the core is that I'm here to help the next person. And what is it Ram Dass said? We're all just walking each other home. So
I
I feel
love
like that's what we're always doing. But what does it really mean? It's becoming more meaningful to me as I go. So that's good.
Thank you for those kind words. And, I really do feel that you have a very giving heart, and no wonder you're in this field, because it's you. Like, not only does Natalie teach what she has learned, but she lives it every day. And I, for one, am very, very grateful and excited to learn from her, because I do need help when it comes to the health portion of my life. So I'm excited. I'm excited. So Natalie, how did you start? How did your story start? Were you always healthy, or how did you get there? How did you become interested in helping other people through their health?
I'll tell you what, I'll tell you a secret. I got on the phone with my mom late last night because I was listening to a talk where someone said that their mom was the pioneer in the 70s of organic eating and taking care of yourself. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, my mom was. So I literally called her last night at almost 11 p.m. And I said, Mom, she was 19 years old when I was born in 1970. And she got pregnant in 69 at age 19. And she took care of herself. And I said to her, well, what was it that made you think to do that? Or what was it about your, being pregnant and having me? Or why were you the anti McDonald's? Why were you the anti margarine person? Why did you exercise and teach exercise? And it's so funny because she's, I picked her brain and she's like, I don't really know. I just knew I was pregnant, and she didn't have a role model herself, she claims. And I'm not gonna say anything about my grandmother's, her upbringing and how she raised her kids, but my mom just thought that it was a natural thing to do, is take care of yourself. She said she bought a bicycle when she got pregnant, and she rode a bike all through her pregnancy. She didn't ride a bike before pregnancy. She didn't own one. She started swimming because there was a pool at the apartment. She didn't really swim much before that. And then just eating healthy. But then she stated that she started reading. She said we didn't have TV and other things to teach us, so she started reading. So she became healthy when I was in the womb. Maybe that carried over. And then my whole life growing up with her, I was the one with the raw peanut butter and the hard wheat bread, and I didn't ever have packaged candies and chips or anything like that. But I'll tell you, when I became 10 years old, I started working for myself. I would go and I would buy all that junk. So I went and I purchased with my own money. I bought all the candies and the things that came in wrappers. I did myself in enough, but I think, that foundation, and that's how it started. And it caught up to me later on, because even when I went to nursing school and I was going through nursing, she was always that one on my shoulder that was telling me medicine wasn't the preference for her, and she was looking into things differently. And as we got older, she started studying the health and the body more and more. And it just infused, and it caught up later. So that saying, teach them in the way they should go, and they will always come back to that. I was that person that I got a little bit of teaching early. I totally went away from it with my lifestyle behaviors, and then I came back to it. So
I love that story. I haven't heard that before from you. So I love it. I didn't know that you got that all from your mom. And yeah, what a great role model, in that sense that she took care of herself and taught you that from the beginning. That's not something, that I grew up with, being in a in an immigrant family as well, like in an immigrant family, because it was all about taking care of other people all the time. And when we did stop to take care of ourselves, it was like, no, 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 there are things to do, kind of like an old fashioned, the women belong in the kitchen, the men are out at work. Not for anything negative, but that's what they grew up with and that's what they taught. And I'm so blessed to have met all these people along my journey that have taught me, no, you need to take care of yourself. And I experienced that myself. And I'm so glad that you've been doing that your life, because you're such a giver, just even to go into medicine and nursing, you want to take care of people. And when you are someone like that who wants to take care of people, you absolutely have to take care of yourself. Absolutely.
I have a confession to make, because I grew up completely opposite of you. I grew up completely self-centered, selfish, and I believe, I'm going to throw it out there, I believe my mother was in that survival mode, a single parent with a young child. My parents divorced when I was 2.5. So she was in survival mode. She took care of herself and left me to figure out how to take care of mine at a very, very young age. I said all those things where she instilled those things in me. I cohabitated with her, and she was there for a lot of things. She did teach me, riding a bike, ice skating, how to cook and make food for myself, because she wasn't going to do it. So I had to do it. And I'm talking 6, 7 years old. And where am I going with this? About the giving part. I spent, I'm 52, and I think I spent most of my life in that survival me mentality, whereas completely opposite of you, I wasn't always a giver. So that's my confession. I was always what's in it for me? How am I going to survive? How am I going to make the next thing happen for me to make it through? Not in a vindictive way. It's just, looking back, I realized that is how I did it. And why I went into nursing was probably out of desperation of needing to do something that was acceptable, that looked good. And my grandmother also said to do it. So I was in fashion design school in LA, and I knew that wasn't happening for me. And I was getting involved in some of the same routines that I did as a teenager here. And I knew it wasn't right. So I said, okay, I'm just going to go home and go to nursing school. And I did. And I got on that path, and I said, that's what I'm going to do, because I needed something to identify with, something to belong to. And that was, we can go, there's a whole nother episode, but it does tie into self-care and aging. We'll get there. I promise anyone who's listening for that piece, we're going to get there. But the whole purpose of why I did what I did was mainly for survival, belonging, and acceptance. And it morphed into a life of being dissatisfied, probably with the work I was doing, having my own emotional mental crashes, I said earlier, you had mentioned in the intro, that led me into what can I do with all of this life that I've lived and all the education that I have now. Now I have this big ball of stuff. What can I do with it? And I learned about functional health and functional medicine, and it just made sense at the time. But I had to go through all of that mud in order to get to the surface. And I'm happy. I'm happy with it. I can tell people now that I'm the person that little girl of me always thought she was anyway and wanted to be. So I can safely say that I found my path through all of the thick and the thin and the mud and the muck.
This is another reason why I absolutely adore you, because not everybody would be that honest. And I appreciate that, because honesty is what is going to help the people that are listening that are struggling. And there's just so much in that, but you're right. That could be like a whole different episode, how we went from, self-serving to because it's giving taking care of yourself isn't selfish, it's brave. And I think it's interesting, our two different journeys and how we end up together, and how I do believe you have such a giving heart. And that's why I wanted, let's help everybody. Let's help everybody figure out how we can live longer so we can give
So
more. And
it all starts, yeah, right. And what you said, it starts with honesty. And that was the first thing that got me on my path. And I won't go into where I was sitting at the time, because I think I mentioned that in an earlier podcast, but I was sitting in the depths of the deepest I have personally ever been. And I had made the decision to be honest. And it was New Year's Eve of 2016 going into 17 when I put my own foot down to myself alone in a small confined space. And I said, you've got to be honest or nothing's going to happen for you. Once I became honest, then things started to change. And it was those little things. It was the tiniest things that I was finding I was being dishonest about. That when I caught myself, it was like, oh. And as soon as I was honest about it, it was like, oh, and things just started to happen. And it's so hard to tell a child to be honest, because dishonesty is self-protective. And
Yes.
that's what I said before. Growing up in that self-protective mode, a lot of it had to do with lying, cheating, and things like that to get me where I needed to be. And it stopped working for me is what happened. It stopped working, and I was an adult. I had to face myself and say, you've got to start being honest with yourself and then with everyone else. And that's where the healing started.
Yeah, and with our health, right? And I think that's where I need to improve, is get honest about where my health is really sitting right now. And if Natalie can do it, and I'm brave enough to put my health in her hands because I am a new client of hers, then if I trust her, then you got to trust her. So, yeah. All right. Aging. Yes.
And bravery doesn't mean taking risks. Bravery is a whole different definition of life. I'm not talking about being brave by risk taking. It's just being brave emotionally, mentally, physically. Yeah. So go ahead.
And you said you were 52. I just turned 50. And I've got a long way to go. I've got a 16-year-old boy, and I want to be here for when he finishes university or whatever it is he decides to do. And I want to, I had him late in life. I was 33. And I do want to be here, not just for him, but for myself, and become healthier. And yes, we're all aging. But can you talk to me about what it means to you when you say aging doesn't have to mean getting old? Because I absolutely love that.
We go through life day to day. We get older, chronologically older, every time the clock ticks, right? Our aging process has to do with how we live through those clock ticks. And all of our lives we hear mom and dad and grandma and school teachers and doctors tell us things like, don't drink, don't smoke, sit up straight, chew your food, don't run with scissors. And those are historical things that we probably hear all the time as kids. And what does it all mean? It's meant to protect us from injury and from illness. So those are just like simple things that we hear that we take for granted in a way. That sitting up straight and chewing our food are, I'm going to pull those two things out because I'm not going to get into the other things, except I was an ER nurse practitioner and an ER nurse for a long time. So running with scissors is a thing, and as well as running with chainsaws and other dangerous objects that can hurt you and land you in the ER. But the thing about chewing your food and sitting up straight, I think, are two of the most interestingly important basic human functions that will destroy us over time if we don't do them.
Really?
See, I can tell you,
That's
I can
awesome.
tell you for a fact that it starts right there. It starts with posture and chewing.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I can break this down. We can end in 5 minutes, or I can elongate over about 15 or 20. But this stuff isn't new. Taking care of ourselves isn't new. And I think that we can anti-age by learning about our body, learning about our environment and what types of things are affecting our environment. So we're born with a set of genes.
Hmm.
And some will call it we're born with a loaded gun. It's our environment that pulls the trigger, so to speak. If hopefully that's not offensive, but we're born with something, but how we utilize it is how it's going to manifest in our lives.
Hmm.
So just because you are born into a family that might be riddled with heart disease and diabetes doesn't mean that you will get that unless you follow the same patterns and lifestyle patterns and behaviors that the family before you have. So there are cases where people like twins have been separated at birth and one led one lifestyle and one led another lifestyle. They're completely different.
Hmm.
There's also a few cases where they were separated and they come back and they're very similar. What is that? There's a lot of studies, a lot of science right now about genetics and how we age and how we process life. But that's pretty much in a nutshell. It's how we live our life. It's how we breathe, what we drink, how we move, how much we sleep,
Hmm.
what kind of relationships we have with people, our community, and our our spiritual well-being. Those are things that will affect our aging.
Hmm. And I didn't know about the chewing and the standing up straight. This is interesting to me. I got to hear a little bit more about that.
Okay,
Um,
so but I can tell you it can get into a little biology lesson. Technology is great. We've been through what I'm finding is modern technology isn't saving us. And we're still human flesh and blood and cells and bones and I'm getting this feeling that not so much with my generation, but the younger people. And this is who I really wanted to reach out to because with virtual reality and artificial intelligence, we're losing sight of the actual human being and how to take care of it. And what we're finding in my practice is sedentary lifestyle and relying so much on no matter what happens to us, somebody's got an idea to take care of it. If we get wrinkles, we can get Botox. If our heart goes bad, we can get a heart transplant. Excuse me, I have to get the dogs.
it's okay.
Go lay down. Go lay down in your spot. So with virtual reality, they're sitting there with goggles on and they're living lives inside this virtual world. They even have clothing designers for VR. I just found that out.
Oh, wow.
Change your clothes. There's actually a clothing designer to make like stylish clothes with specific logos to make yourself look like something in this virtual reality world. You could be whoever you want to be. Meanwhile, you're sitting there. Our human flesh is sitting there and it's deteriorating. So it's getting older than it needs to be.
Mm.
We're aging prematurely. We might be living longer because of technology, but how are we living better? I don't know. I don't think so. I think we're not living better, and it's no secret. It's no secret that, the obesity and the food. And if you've been following your podcast, you had so many guests on to talk about different things like that. Our our food system is going down and how we really need to start paying attention to that. So that's how I am approaching today's. It's kind of reminding us that we are flesh and blood.
Mm.
We're not robots yet. And
Yes. I
simply
love this.
because we're not robots yet. And that's how we need to start taking care of it. We have to continue taking care of ourselves as humans in this technological world.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, because I fall into that sometimes, but I see the new generation, like I said, I've got a teenager and I see him and his friends, and as soon as they get out there and do something physical, it's like, but my legs hurt and my back hurts and this hurts. And I'm like, you are 16 years old. What do you mean? And it's because you're not moving enough. In school, you're sitting all day. Then you come home, you're on the computer. My son is addicted to the computer. So I do make sure he gets out there and plays soccer and does all these other things. But when you're not using your body, and especially the young generation now, what's going to happen to them? Like, if I'm already feeling it because I'm not taking care of my body the way that I should be at 50, what are these kids going to do? They do need to be reawakened, I think. In one part, I don't think it's really their fault. They know nothing different. I think it's up to the older generation to guide them. And so I'm so happy that you're focusing on that, because I think there's a huge need. Absolutely.
Right. So what I like to talk to people about is the experience of, let's go with the posture. We're always on the phone. Every day at my job, I'm teaching. I see a lot of people that have been injured and they have pre-existing issues with their musculoskeletal system, and they were, say, in a car accident and they get whiplash, right? Your head snaps back, but your body's used to being, I can't really show you, we're used to being like this all day, or on the computer all day. We're in this new hunch kind of thing. Our spine isn't meant to do that. We're meant to be upright. That's why sitting on a ball is helpful in keeping your spine straight. And looking up from the computer, they say that, but who does it? And how often are we doing it? So I'm taking people and I'm saying, just sit up a little straighter. When you sit up straighter, it opens your rib cage. You can get a deep breath in. Well, our life is our breath. If we can't get a deep breath in, the breathing, that we can't get oxygen to our blood, and our blood can't get to our organs. So when we're hunched over, we're crushing all of our organs. We're limiting our air breath getting into our lungs to expand, and then we're creating all this stress and tension. So then when you do go out and do something, your body doesn't know how to act anymore. If you're sitting all day and then you go for a 20-minute game of b-ball after school, yeah, you're gonna hurt because you're in this all day, and all of a sudden you want your body to do this and move. It's not going to happen. So posture is so huge. Our digestive system's in there, our liver, our lungs, our heart, everything. And when we bend and hunch forward, we are inhibiting those organs, our vital organs, from getting the oxygen and blood supply that they deserve. And they will start to break down little by little. And premature aging happens with those little micro insults that we give ourselves every single day by hunching. I said, I tell myself, sit up straight. In my car, I find I'm like this in my car. Move the seat a little bit to force myself. It's a constant reminder for me. And this is exactly what I'm telling my clients every day, what I'm saying to you right now. I sit there and I show them. Let's see if I can show you real quick. Let's see. So here's me. I'm just standing in line. And then all of a sudden, look what happens. I stand up, stomach goes in. You can actually breathe, but you can feel it right away as soon as you correct your posture. And it's only a few inches of correction. I'm not saying walk like that. People say, oh, I can't sit like this all day. And I'm like, no, I don't want you to sit like this all day. I just want you to
penguin.
I was taught that as a kid. I think in class we were taught how to sit, stand, walk with a book on your head. I don't know if you remember that. I really didn't have to do that, but my mom's era, when they were little, they had to sit up straight and put a book on their head, and that that's how we're supposed to be. If you look at a skeleton without muscles on it, it's supposed
Mm.
to be straight.
Thank you
You
for
know what
that
I'm
reminder. As I'm listening to you, I like trying to straighten up my my posture, because I'm a terrible slouch when I'm on the computer. Terrible, honestly. And
saying?
I
You
need to
sit
just
back a little bit, you'll feel your diaphragm go down. And a lot of things that people don't know what's inside. I do know. I know what's inside the body. I can visualize the lungs expanding and contracting with every breath, what the diaphragm does, where the stomach and the heart are. I can visualize it. Most people can't. And that's what's hard about my job is I get so excited about these little tiny things that make a big difference. But if you can't feel it yourself or visualize it within your own body, it's going to be harder for you to do it until you actually feel it for yourself. So I say, sometimes we just have to do it and then feel it later.
absolutely, absolutely.
Because if you don't do it, you're going to feel it later, but it's going to be a lot different feeling.
And then you would have wished, should have, could have, So let's take that time now every day. But what about the chewing? That fascinates me. Do you mean from a perspective of just slow down your eating and appreciate like mindset that way, like just mindfulness? Or is there more to it when you say that chewing is such a big part of our health?
It is all of what you said. It's mindfulness, and it's the way we're designed to eat is we originally we're still that hunter gatherer. People would go out, you'd hunt all day and catch your food, or you'd collect berries and you'd collect vegetables and you'd work all day, and you'd get your food together. In your mind what you're going to make, so your brain's already thinking what you're going to make to eat. So the brain is already thinking about it, and then once you're cooking it, you're smelling the aroma, and then once you sit down with it, you appreciate it. So if you remember the Waltons, everybody would sit around the
Yes.
table. That's so passive. Who sits at the table anymore? Golly, just give me that thing. Let me go eat in front of the computer. I got something to do, or I got to run. Let me grab it. I'll eat in the car, right? That's what we're all about. Our body, our human body, has to use that food for fuel, for energy, for existence. So if the brain can't prepare for what it's going to eat, then it can't create the enzymes it's going to take to digest that food. And by smelling it and thinking about it and seeing it and then appreciating it, your body's already starting to, your mouth waters, because it's getting ready for what you're going to eat already. So it's like an ATM machine. It's only going to spit out the 10 for this. If you're going to have a pizza versus a broccoli, your mind knows what enzymes are needed to digest that versus that. So I have another thing to tell you. So by appreciating it and then chewing it, most of our digestion happens in the mouth. If we swallow things whole, the nutrients don't get absorbed.
Yes.
And the body can't use it. So it's kind of a waste of food.
And as a person who loves food, me, when you slow your food down and you're intentional and you feel the texture, the taste, you smell, you do all of those, use your five senses for that, you tend to get full sooner when you slow down. It's not just about how much can you fit in your mouth. It is very intentional. It's more enjoyable. You taste things better. I have this self-care rescue kit that I offer people, and in there is an eating meditation. And that's something I learned how to do a few years ago and really helped me to slow that down and to just feel everything. And I'm like, what do you mean the texture? I know what I'm eating and the texture, but when you stop, like one of my favorite things to do is sit by the water and have lunch by myself and have no distractions, so I can actually feel the food that I'm eating. So I love that we're talking about this.
Yeah, absolutely. Eating in peace and eating with intention. That might sound woo woo, but the truth is that's what we're designed to do. And when we think that we can outsmart our design, we fail. And I don't care how many pedometers you wear, how many smartwatches you wear that tells you your heart rate, how many hours you sleep. It'll tell you that, but what are you going to do with the information? That's the key. And getting back on track with the eating is, in functional medicine, we treat people based on the root cause of the problem. And I would say the majority of our problems and our health disparities all result from malnutrition. And we have malnutrition for a lot of reasons. And one is, okay, so the quality of the food isn't great, but we still have good food here. The packaging, people try to do a good job at putting in nutrients that the human body requires. But when we go off and we eat ultra processed foods, we're getting zero, and we're filling up on that stuff. The other thing is, we can't outsmart the fact that we need our teeth to chew. We're finding that people's mouths are getting smaller. Their airways are getting smaller because we're eating food that's pretty much already chewed. So we're not getting that chewing exercise in and that swallowing exercise. And once the food is chewed and swallowed, it goes into the stomach, it gets broken down, goes into the small intestine. And that's kind of where the helping hands are. You get, it says, okay, you have this vitamin goes here, this vitamin goes here, this mineral, this fat, this carbohydrate, and it sifts out. It's like the sifter that tells the nutrients where to go. But if you're not getting the digestion started early, it's going to get lost in translation. And that's when people put on weight, because we're eating too fast, not chewing, eating the wrong foods, maybe too many of the wrong foods. And then when we're not getting energy because we didn't do ourselves justice at the beginning, which is right here, like you said, using all of our senses to chew and eat and then swallow. And then you find that you do stop sooner if you take your time to eat, and you won't overeat. It's that mindless eating. It's that, and granted, I do it too sometimes. And I go, what did I just eat? How many times do you eat and go, I didn't even taste that? Or it's already, you're looking at your, it's already gone. What? You know, you're sitting, you have your bowl next to your computer and it's gone already. And you don't even remember eating it. And then you're getting something else in 20 minutes to a half hour.
Absolutely. Thank you for explaining how that works too with the sifter, because I think for the first time I understand.
The body is a wonderful tool, a wonderfully designed system. Our human bodies, like if you watch animals in the wild, they will do exactly what they're designed to do. I watch my horse eat grass. Like there could be all this plush grass here, and she could walk up to it and sniff and walk away and go over 10 feet over there, and oh, there's something good here. And it all looks the same to me, but for her, her makeup is, she knows, her nose knows what's right for her and what's wrong. So she'll twirl through the grass and pick out specific little blades and pick around the weeds that aren't good. It's amazing.
Wow, incredible.
They'll pick through and they'll only take what they know by their nature is appropriate for their body.
Natalie, can you talk to me about things that we drink? Because I'm a big coffee drinker and sugar is a huge thing. So sugar, does it age us?
Sugar does cause premature aging. Sugar, the way we have it nowadays, is so in everything. I did the sugar talk years ago, and I still have it on one of my, anyway, I learned so much about sugar when I went off of sugar, and I remained off of it for almost 3 years. Reading labels, I'm teaching adults how to read labels, because it's an added thing to make everything taste better. It does nothing for nutrition the way that it is now. We get sugar from our fruit and vegetables, have what's called glucose. It comes with nature sugar in it, but it's also accompanied with protein, vitamins, minerals, fiber. So the body knows how to break down an apple versus an apple juice, which is just squished juice, which doesn't have the fiber and the other nutrients in it. So it's like getting a main line of sugar when you're drinking a juice versus eating an entire apple, which has all of the collective nutrients in it that our bodies need.
So would you be okay? We all know that water is amazing for us. What can we drink besides water when we are looking for a healthy choice? Because I'm really struggling with that.
Okay. Yeah, our bodies are made up of water, so we need to make sure we replenish it. And when we disperse our water, especially when it's cold, people don't realize how much we perspire out of our breath to keep our bodies warm in the colder climates. And we actually get more dehydrated in the winter. You don't think of drinking that glass of water in the winter as much as you do in the summer when you're hot. But in the winter time is when we dry out. We can feel it dry in our skin. You're putting on more lotion, right? But we're breathing out a lot of our moisture because our breath helps keep our body warm. We need more water during the winter. And to answer your question about water, I have this battle with so many people. Whatever it takes to get some in, if you're not drinking any water at all, you drink some a little bit. Start with some, and you'll start to feel the difference. Hopefully, I tell people to start with that first morning cup of water. I don't like cold water. I keep my water on the counter in the Brita pitcher. It's another thing, filtered water. I keep it on the counter, and I might have my water after my coffee because I just don't like that cold feeling. And sometimes it hurts when it's cold. It shocks and gives like a spasm in the esophagus, and it's painful. So I don't like to drink cold water. I drink room temperature water. And you can, well, let me ask you, what is the issue with you and water?
I do like water, but when I want to reach for something that's a little bit more flavorful to me, I always go for coffee. I'm not a pop drinker. I do drink juice, which is not great, but I don't in general drink a lot, and because I'm not feeling thirsty, and I think I just need to get that intake no matter what, because I only drink when I'm thirsty, and I'm very rarely thirsty. So I know I'm dehydrated.
Full disclosure, I'm an all-day coffee drinker. I traded my liquor in for coffee 6 years ago. Yay. And I also have to force myself to drink it. It's just, you got to force yourself.
Yeah.
You just have to realize that you make the decision, I'm going to take better care of myself. And that's one of the things I need to do.
So do you think coffee adds to the aging process, or because for me, I think it's the sugar that's added into the coffee, not so much the coffee.
I'm going to agree with you on that one. Only because I stopped sugar and I stopped dairy in my coffee. I add now cinnamon to my coffee, just a shake. And for a while I was doing some coconut oil in the coffee. If you can get over the oil slick on top, it takes away that bite of the bitterness of the coffee. Like, people like to have that creamy flavor, and it's just about getting over it. It's about trying it. If you want to do better by yourself, you just do the thing.
I love that you're talking about, look, we can learn all of these things, but if you don't take action, time is going to pass anyway.
Mm-hmm.
A year from now, it's still going to be a year from now. And if nothing changes, then nothing changes. So it's true. A lot of us deep inside know some of these things, but we need to take action and have accountability. But some of the things you talked about, I didn't realize. Like I live in Canada, as the listeners know, and I didn't realize that, yes, I feel my skin getting drier, for example, but I didn't realize it's because I'm dehydrated, because I'm, the breath is coming in. Like what you were saying was like, oh, I haven't heard that before. I'm learning so much today.
I like this conversation. I want to keep it simple because I want people to actually take away, the two main things. If you could sit up straighter, and I actually had a client who I taught that to, and just recently. And one, not only does it increase your circulation and get the air to your brain so you can think better, it reduces anxiety because when we hunch, and everything gets cramped up, and anxiety can raise. And you don't even realize you're not taking a nice deep breath. When you sit up and you take a deep breath, people instantly relax. You can't help it. You instantly relax. So sitting up straighter not only helps the mental, emotional, it helps the blood, the organs. And the other thing I was going to say is the chewing of the food too, just being able to understand why we eat. We eat for information for our body.
Mm.
You can put bad gas in your car and it's going to sputter and kick and bark, and it's going to get to where you're going. But in the meantime, that bad gas is in there. It's breaking down small, fine little rubber pieces, or getting into areas and making things loose that shouldn't be loose because of the balking of the car. And that's how our body is. Our body's going to get us to where we're going, even if we put in poor nutrition. It's just going to break down things on the way. And that's where your premature aging is going to come from. It's those little micro actions that we are taking for granted.
And we do take that for granted. We all know that we should be healthier, but how much of our day do we really spend thinking about our bodies? Like, I'm going to be brutally honest here, because if I'm not honest, who's going to come on here and be honest, right? The only time I really think about my bodies, because this is the thing that I really need help with, is when it's in pain. It reminds me you're not taking care of yourself. So, that's one of the things I want to do, is set time aside every day intentionally and think about, what am I doing to myself? How can I change it? Be more aware, like you said, when you catch yourself doing something, to try to get into that practice of correcting it. Because I don't want people don't do what I'm doing, because I don't want people to only think of their bodies when it's screaming out, oh my goodness, I have an ache, or I have a pain, or, because that's not what we want to do. We want to prevent those things from happening, right?
Absolutely.
And when I talk about giving starts with you, health is a big part. And that's the one part that I do honestly tend to forget about, and I'm paying for it now. So I do want to talk a little bit more about this on the podcast, because I don't think that we always associate our health with giving to ourselves.
And just to the effect of what you just said, right before we got on, I'm a chronic note taker. Things are always, you could look around my room and pull out any old little tiny piece of paper. There's a note on it. I need to get more organized. But I wrote this right before we started, and I said, there's a difference between surviving and thriving. And once we're sick or we feel pain, we're no longer in thriving mode. We are in survival mode. And no one's thinking about, so we're not thinking about thriving when we're faced with an illness or injury at the moment. All we're thinking about is surviving through that illness, injury for that moment. And that's why it's hard to talk to people when they're sick about getting better. When I was sick last year, I had COVID 1 year ago today. And my mom brought me this box of take this. The last thing I want to do when I'm sick is to take stuff. It took me, I walked by the aspirin cabinet 10 times before I finally took something. The time to talk to somebody about getting better isn't when they're sick.
Mm.
And that's why I think it's important for prevention and to reach people before they get to that point. But like you said, you don't think of your body until it's in pain.
Bad habit.
And then what? Once you're in pain, all you're thinking about is getting out of pain. You're not thinking about all the things that got you into pain. And here's me barking in your ear
Yes.
about, well, if you didn't sit up straight and you didn't chew your food, you might not have all these musculoskeletal problems. If you didn't have all that sugar, you wouldn't be so inflamed. Getting back to the sugar question that we didn't answer. You wouldn't be so inflamed. Things wouldn't be breaking down. You don't want to hear that when you're hurting. You're just like, give me something to get me out of pain.
And
And then
once you're out of pain, yeah, but sometimes once you're out of pain and that feeling goes away, then you don't think about it again.
right, you forget exactly
Yes.
where I was going with that. So we're on the same page. I was going to say the same thing. Once the pain's over, like, wait till it happens next time. And then I'll be, I'm going to do this. You have all these great plans, just like New Year after New Year after New Year. You have all these great plans and then it comes. So yes, that is a devastating part of humanity. And I say devastating part of humanity because that's what we do. There's a lot of people that think and breathe all day long, and those people have their own unique issues to deal with. However, there is a balance. There's a balance, and it's just simple. And that's why I love what I do. It's your simple basics. Are we getting enough sleep? Are we getting enough nutrition? Are we having good family relationships? Are our stress levels okay? Are we able to have tools to handle stress? Stress ages people more than anything, because what does stress lead to? It leads to slouching and poor eating, and it's all intertwined. And people think, oh my gosh, how can I possibly ever get help? You start with one thing. You start with chewing a meal and sitting up a little straighter. Well, that's two things, and things fall into place. It's not terrible. There's hope.
I love this. I honestly learned a lot of things from you. And I always love having conversations with you, whether it's on camera, off camera. We have a lot of off camera conversations. And I appreciate that because if I can be educated and want to do something about it, anybody can. Because honestly, I do need to pay more attention. And I'm not ashamed of admitting that. It's just truthful. And if you're not, like, going back to the beginning of our conversation, if you're not honest about where you are, things won't change. I was just posting about my word for 2023, which is simplicity, and just getting back to basics.
And that's why I love I started my coaching program before I got into the Institute of Functional Medicine and became a certified functional medicine practitioner. I started with coaching because in order to affect change, people need to be coached. And you can be given, here's 5 tips. And speaking of the 5 tips, it's something I've given you to share with people. But here's 5 tips, but without the action, there won't be any progress. I'm going to buy this gym membership and go to the gym every day. You just buy a gym membership and you don't even drink water. You're not getting enough sleep yet. Don't ask your body to do something for you until you do something for it.
Interesting.
Movement is great. Drinking water, reducing your toxic intake of unhealthy foods and processed things and ultra processed, looking for cleaner meals, eating fresh things the way that they're grown, the way that God made them. They're made to nourish our bodies on purpose. Like I talked about the horse knows innately what to eat, what not to eat. Any creature out there besides us, unless they're starving. I've seen animals eat terrible things, but I think it's because we have so much influence on them. But natural animals will only eat what they know is good for them, that nourishes them. So eating cleaner, getting movement doesn't mean buying a gym membership or sitting, it's just getting up once in a while, breathing, and then looking at your community of people that you hang around. Are you involved with a good core community of people? Because I have in the thing toxic relationships. are detrimental to our health. We're the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Who is that? Looking around you and saying, are you being nourished emotionally and spiritually also is huge, because people that don't care to take care of themselves. So it's there's not just one thing, it all works together.
I have learned so much from you today, as I know that the listeners have. I'm so excited to learn more. And I just, I'm just sitting here and I'm trying to absorb everything. So if you have to listen back to the episode, listen to some of the things that Natalie said. She makes a lot of sense. And I know some of these things we've heard before, but honestly, it is about action and just finding the right person. I find it very easy to work with Natalie. And if you want to reach out to her or reach out to me, please do so. I'm going to put all the links at the end of the show. So Move That Mountain. I love the name. Love it. Where can we find you? Where can we connect with you, Natalie?
My website is movethatmountainlife.com. And I do have a free consultation link right in there. You can schedule a 20-minute consultation with me. It's usually 30 minutes, but I say 20 minutes. And we can see what, if anything, is your next step in your health journey. People call me for all different kinds of reasons. I'm not always the right person for you, but if I'm not, I'm definitely going to offer you suggestions. It's a win-win situation. You can't lose by reaching out, because you're going to learn something from me. And I'm kind of on Instagram, not really. I have a Facebook page, Move That Mountain.
Yeah, I'll put all her links down. And sometimes people are hesitant to do these free consultation calls because they're like, oh, it's just a sales call to get me to buy their thing. And it's not. When it comes to Natalie, it's not. She is going to be helping you in that time. And there is no pressure to do anything. But wouldn't it be great to have a starting point? And I really want you guys to take her up on that. She's incredible. She's so incredible that I have invited her to my next ukulele project in Guatemala. And when you talk about the 5 people that you're surrounded with, we're going to have these 5 powerful women coming and just creating change and impact and being a part of this community. And you can tell why. You know why I invited Natalie. I mean, she's incredible. So you guys will hear more about that as well. But I just, before we go, is there anything you wanted to leave the audience with today?
I just will reiterate, honesty, and just start paying attention to yourself. I fell into this on accident. I was a nurse for 20 some years before I understood any of this. We did not learn nutrition and how the body works in nursing school or in nurse practitioner. I have 2 nurse practitioner degrees, and nowhere. We talk about holistic medicine. Well, I never learned that chewing my food was important in my degree school. I had to learn that later. So, we're all a work in progress. And I think that it's important to just identify what you're doing to yourself, and one thing at a time. Just one thing. Pick one thing. And download that 5 tips that I gave you. And there's 5 things on there. And right now we're dealing with a lot of mental, emotional struggles. And those also go hand in hand with eating. If you're always in panic mode, fight or flight mode, always rushing to get somewhere, you're not going to be able to nourish your body. So, just breathe and slow down and call me. I will talk to you one-on-one.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Thank you for being a part of the show and being a part of my journey and my life as well. Can't wait to speak to you again. And thank you. And if the listeners do have any questions, please reach out to Natalie-Jo. Please reach out to me. And don't forget to check out her journey on episodes 52 and 53.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe or leave a review. See you next week on the Giving Starts With You podcast.